all, let me brief you about the theme of this particular, the agenda, the approach that we are going to use in these particular classes. Now, first of all, guys, in these particular classes, we are going to cover the current affairs of last. We are going to cover the current affairs of last 18 months, roughly 18 months. Now, 1 year is our focus, but there are certain developments that were there in news 1.5 years back, but they are very important. There is a possibility that a question might be asked, some very important developments. So for that, I'll be going way back 18 months also. Okay. Secondly, these particular classes that we are going to cover will follow theme-based manner. These particular classes will be thematic in nature. What do we mean by thematic in nature? It means that what we are going to do, we are going to divide entire current affairs in certain core themes, and theme wise we are going to cover, for example, environment, environment and ecology, environment and ecology. Then there is social justice, social justice. Then let's say there is economy, economy, science and technology, polity, international relation IR, plus international organizations, places in news, places in news. So what we have done, we have divided the entire current affairs in certain core themes. So up till now, what we have discussed that IPCC, it is a UN body created by two organizations, that is World Meteorological Organization and UNEP. It releases its assessment report once in 5 to 6 years. Up till now, 5 reports have been released, and now they are releasing its 6th report. It does not conduct its own scientific research. All the reports that they publish on the basis of findings that have been submitted to them by the other scientists and researchers. Okay, and we have seen that the highest decision-making body under IPCC is IPCC plenary. And now in this IPCC plenary, all the members of IPCC, they send their representatives. Okay, now these all aspects are important. And in past, if you'll see the previous year questions, such kind of things have been asked. Now, in total, under IPCC, there are 3 working groups that we have, and these 3 working groups, they release their own reports. Working group 1, it releases the report on physical science behind climate change. Now you see this particular thing, that how methane is leading to climate change, what is the physical science behind climate change, that how greenhouse gas effect is contributing to it, how black soot or black carbon that is increasing, how it is leading to climate change. So physical science, okay, on that it releases the report. Then working group 2, it assesses the vulnerability of socio-economic and natural systems, how people living on island communities, they'll get impacted, how women will get impacted. And working group 3, it focuses on mitigation, okay, that how you can reduce the negative impacts of climate change. So these 3 working groups, they release their reports. Working group 1 releases the report on physical science behind climate change. Working group 2 releases the report on the vulnerability of different socio-economic groups, and working group 3 releases report on the mitigation efforts. And in total, then there is a final report, that is a synthesis report. So 1 year back, synthesis report, this is the final report that has been released. Now, some of the important findings of this particular report I have given here. Now, first of all, guys, understand this particular thing, that whatever findings that we are seeing here, these are peculiar findings. For the first time, these findings have been given out. Now, first finding is that for the first time, IPCC, it has made a direct link between climate change and health impacts of climate change, that how the climate change will negatively impact the health. And it has provided that with the climate change, there will be increase in vector-borne diseases such as dengue, chikungunya, malaria. There will be waterborne diseases, okay, diarrhea, etc., circulatory disease, respiratory disease, and even the diabetic infectious diseases are going to increase by the climate change. So this is the first time that they have made a direct link between the health and the climate change. So if there is a such kind of a thing that IPCC has recommended it in its report, so yes, they have recommended it. Then next thing that they have talked about is they talk about is rising wet bulb temperature. Rising wet bulb temperature. Now, what is this concept of wet bulb temperature? We will be discussing it little bit because I believe that independently the concept of wet bulb temperature is important for your geography and related areas. So let's discuss about the wet bulb temperature. Now guys, see this particular thing, that first of all we have dry bulb temperature. We have dry bulb temperature. What is the dry bulb temperature? So what you do, you simply take a thermometer. You simply take a thermometer and you put this thermometer in a room and you take down the reading what is coming on this thermometer, that is the dry bulb temperature. For example, I take thermometer, I place this thermometer in the room, and let's say I get a reading of 40 degrees Celsius. Now this is the dry bulb temperature, normal that we understand. Then the next is the concept of wet bulb temperature. What is wet bulb temperature? So here we are going to take a thermometer. We are going to take a thermometer. On the bulb of this particular thermometer, I will place a wet cloth. I will place a wet cloth and then I will take the reading. Then I will take the reading. Now guys, suppose I put both of these thermometers, that is a thermometer wrapped with a cloth and this normal thermometer in the same room. Will I get the same reading? No, I will not get a same reading. Suppose I am getting a reading of 40 degrees Celsius here. Then here the reading that I will get will be somewhere around, let's say it can be 30 degrees Celsius. It can be 25 degrees Celsius. So obviously reading that I will get here, it will be lower than the reading that I am getting here. First of all, you need to understand that why I am getting a lower reading here on this particular second thermometer. It is because of the fact, now you see this particular thing, that I have this cloth which is wrapped on this particular thermometer. Now, water in this particular cloth, it wants to evaporate. Water in this particular cloth wants to evaporate. And when it is trying to evaporate, it needs energy. And what is happening? It is stealing energy. It is stealing energy in the form of heat from the bulb of this particular thermometer. So water wants to evaporate. For evaporation, it needs energy. And it is getting that energy from the heat of this particular thermometer, from the bulb of this particular thermometer. It is getting that particular heat or energy. And then it is evaporating. So what is happening? That reading will come down. Reading will come down. Okay. Now, one more concept, one more analogy we'll understand, and then this wet bulb temperatures idea will become more clear to you. Now, guys, you see this particular thing, that sometimes, suppose you are in a bathroom and you are having shower. What happens? You are in a bathroom, you are having shower. The moment you come out of the bathroom, suddenly you feel a cooling sensation on your body. Now, why you are feeling this cooling sensation on your body the moment you have come out of the bathroom? It is because of the fact that now you are out of the shower, your body is wet, and now the water is evaporating from your body. As water is evaporating from your body, it is taking heat from your body. And as it is taking heat from your body, it leaves a cooling sensation on your body. It leaves a cooling sensation on your body. Okay, you feel cool. Now, one more question I just would like to make from here is that why you are not feeling cool when you were in washroom? Why you were not feeling cold when you were in bathroom? Was water not evaporating at that point of time? Fine. Now the reason is that, guys, understand this particular thing, that when you were in the bathroom, your body was wet, but the water was not evaporating that much from your body. Why water was not evaporating that much from your body? It is because of the fact that if the water has to evaporate, it needs space. It needs space to evaporate. In your washroom, already environment was very much humid. Already environment was very much humid, and it did not had the water on your body did not had space to evaporate. So it was not evaporating that much, and you are not feeling that cooling sensation. Now you have come to your room. Here the humidity is less. And as humidity is already less, there is a space in the environment that the water can evaporate. Water can evaporate. Now, these analogies will help you understand the concept of wet bulb temperature and why this is very much problematic, why this is very much alarming. Now, you see this particular thing that when we talk about this wet bulb temperature, this temperature indirectly tells us about humidity. Now, just wait for 2 minutes, all this will become clear because all these things will get connected. Now, you see this particular thing. Suppose in this particular room, there is a lot of humidity. In this particular room, there is a lot of humidity. What will happen? A lot of humidity. I keep both of these thermometers in this particular room. Suppose here I'm getting 40 degrees Celsius reading. And if there is a lot of humidity, means water here will not be able to evaporate. And as water is not able to evaporate, obviously it will not steal the heat. And as it will not steal the heat, here also I will get a higher reading. Here also I will get a higher reading. Example 2. Suppose I keep both of these two thermometers in a room where there is a very less humidity, or let's say there is no humidity. Here I will get a particular reading. Here also I will get a reading, but here now the reading will be very much lower. Why? Because a lot of water will evaporate, and as the water will evaporate, it will steal a lot of heat. So the reading here will be lower. So point is that if already humidity in environment is high, if already humidity in the environment is high, I will get high wet bulb temperature. I will get high wet bulb temperature. If humidity is low, I will get a low wet bulb temperature. Now, IPCC says that wet bulb temperature is increasing. Now, if wet bulb temperature is increasing, what is the problem? What is the problem if wet bulb temperature is increasing? Now, here the interesting part comes. Guys, you see this particular thing. There is a concept of heat index. There is a concept of heat index. Now, what is this heat index? If you have observed in your mobile phone, if you watch that what is the temperature today, you get two type of numbers. One is actual temperature and what it feels like. What it feels like. Okay, for example, if you go to some coastal city, temperature might be, let's say, 35 degree, but feels like might be 40 to 43 degree. Now understand this thing, heat index. Heat index combines two things. Heat plus humidity. Heat plus humidity. Now, when humidity is high, when this humidity is high, you will feel even a higher temperature, though actually it is not that high. Just to explain this particular concept, let me give you a case study. So, Saudi Arabia, Tehran. So, in Tehran, Saudi Arabia, in 2000s, what happened? Normal dry bulb temperature was 45 degrees Celsius, and wet bulb temperature reached to 35 degrees Celsius. 35 degrees Celsius. Now, 45 degrees Celsius is a normal temperature. You'll find it in North India even now. Okay. But wet bulb temperature, it reached to 35 degrees Celsius. Means high wet bulb temperature means the humidity is high. Now, on heat index, what it feels like? What it feels like? It comes to 81 degrees Celsius. Means that when you will have this much wet bulb temperature, that humidity will make the temperature unbearable. That humidity will make the temperature unbearable. And actually what you will feel like will be 81 degrees Celsius, where humans cannot survive. Now, you understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the wet bulb temperature is rising, in simple terms, it means that the humidity is rising. Humidity is rising. Now, if humidity is rising and if heat is also rising, we cannot bear that particular kind of a temperature. Why we cannot bear? Let's understand that also. Now, when we talk about humans, humans have sweat-based cooling mechanism. What is this sweat-based cooling mechanism? So, suppose I feel that there is a lot of high temperature, I will sweat. When I will sweat, what will happen? My sweat will evaporate. And as the sweat will evaporate, it will leave a cooling sensation on my body. So humans, how they cool their core temperature? By sweating. More heat, I will sweat more. More sweat will evaporate and I will feel my body's temperature will come down. But when wet bulb temperature is high, it means that already there is too much humidity. And as the water was not evaporating in the washroom, Same way, if in the environment there is too much humidity, humans will sweat, but their sweat will not evaporate. And as that sweat will not evaporate, humans, their core body's temperature will not come down, and there will be massive heat mortality. There will be a lot of heat stress that is there. Now, biologically, there is a range which humans can tolerate. So the upper limit of wet bulb temperature that the human can tolerate, it is 32 degrees Celsius. It is 32 degrees Celsius. Beyond, if wet bulb temperature goes beyond 32 degrees Celsius, humans cannot operate. And 35 degrees Celsius is that critical temperature where the humans might die. Okay, means that there is so much heat and your body is not able to cool down because the sweat that it is producing is not able to evaporate. Only solution is AC, air conditioning. But you know this particular thing that lot of people in India, they cannot afford air conditioning. Normal coolers, fans, they don't work. Only AC can help, but they cannot afford. And even the middle class, they will use more ACs. It will further lead to higher emissions. It will lead to more electricity demand. It will further push the wet bulb temperature. So we have struck down in a kind of a vicious cycle. We have struck down in a vicious cycle. Now, when we talk about wet bulb temperature, when we talk about the wet bulb temperature, so the study provides this particular thing that Lucknow and Patna, they will see a wet bulb temperature of 35 degrees Celsius. In some of the places in the world, when the wet bulb temperature has reached to 28 degrees Celsius, there have been the mass mortalities across the world. 32 is the upper limit that we can tolerate. And in Lucknow and Patna, there will be 35 degrees Celsius wet bulb temperature that will be reaching. And on this particular thing, there is one follow-up newspaper article that was come. I have added it also here. IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, what it is doing? It is now preparing heat hazard score. It is now preparing heat hazard score that it will release for the different cities, different states. Now this heat hazard score will combine normal air temperature and humidity, or normal air temperature and humidity. So heat index combines two things, humidity and heat. And that humidity component is measured through the wet bulb temperature, and increasing wet bulb temperature means that there will be the heat related deaths. Heat waves will become more intense. Upper limit is 32 degrees Celsius, and in India it will reach to 35 degrees Celsius. For the first time, IPCC has explained this particular concept. For the first time, IPCC has mentioned about this particular thing. First of all, guys, tell me this particular thing, that are you able to understand this concept? Now you see this particular thing, there is a related lot of things that are associated with this wet bulb temperature. Okay, on which application or conceptual question might be asked in your geography. So therefore, this information, I expect that it is clear. Please reply in the comment box that are you able to understand it? Is it clear or not? Is it
Can
clear?
you please repeat the relationship between humidity and wet bulb temperature once again?
Yes, I'll repeat that also. And in the notes, I have provided this particular pictographic also here. After the class, you can read it also here, that wet bulb temperature is the lowest temperature to which air can be cooled. Now, see, you'll get that idea. Now, you see this particular thing. So, question is there that relation between wet bulb temperature and humidity. Relation between wet bulb temperature and humidity. You see this particular thing that actually wet bulb temperature indicates what is the what is the humidity in environment. Higher wet bulb temperature means higher humidity. Higher wet bulb temperature means higher humidity. Now you see this particular thing that suppose you have a normal thermometer, it shows you a reading of 40 degrees Celsius. Then you have another thermometer wrapped with a wet cloth. Here you are measuring the wet bulb temperature. Now here if reading is let's say here if reading is 20 degrees Celsius. Why reading is 20 degrees Celsius? It is because of the fact that there was less humidity, and because there was a less humidity, more water was able to evaporate. And if more water has to evaporate, it will take more heat. It will take more heat, and the temperature reading here will come down. But if this reading is high, let's say here 40 degrees Celsius, and let's say here 38 degrees Celsius, it means that already there is so much of humidity that the water is not able to evaporate. This is the reason that wet bulb temperature is high. So wet bulb temperature and humidity, they have a positive correlation. They have a direct relation. They have a direct relation, means high humidity, high wet bulb temperature. High wet bulb temperature and high dry bulb temperature means heat index will go high. High heat index means that there will be the heat mortalities. Yes, is it clear or not?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I hope that this particular concept is clear to you. Okay, fine. Then next, sea level temperature, sea levels will rise. That also they have explained. So sea levels can rise to 2 meter this century and 5 meter by 2150 if we did not take any corrective steps. Okay, and also this is the first time, now very important thing, this is the first time that IPCC has said categorically that 1.5 degrees Celsius warming was inevitable even in the best case scenario. Earlier, fifth report, IPCC has said that maybe we will breach that one, maybe. Now, first of all, let me explain this 1.5 degrees Celsius concept and then I will come back. So in Paris Agreement, in 2015, Paris Agreement, world countries agreed that will try to ensure that the temperature should not rise beyond 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. Temperature should not rise beyond 2 degrees Celsius. And if possible, will ensure that the temperature should not rise beyond 1.5 degrees. So 1.5 degrees ambitious target. So they said that we'll try. Temperature should not go beyond 2 degree. But if possible, then we'll try to restrict it to 1.5 degree. Now, for the first time, IPCC has said that you cannot limit the temperature within 1.5 degree. It will go beyond 1.5 degree even in the best case scenario, and in 2030s will breach this 1.5 degree limit. And the last decade was hotter in the last 1.25 lakh years. So these are the major findings that we have here. Okay, now secondly, when we talk about the India specific finding, now for India, it has said that first of all, it will have a major impact on the rainfall patterns. Southwest monsoon, they said that it has declined in the past few decades. Now see, here you will find an interesting relation that they have made. Now see, southwest monsoon has declined because of the increase of aerosols. Now see, we have a basic understanding that when aerosols will increase, okay, it will act as a condensation nuclei and will assist in the rain. But you understand this thing that if aerosols increase, aerosols help in increasing cloud cover. Aerosols help in increasing cloud cover. If cloud cover will increase, fine. If cloud cover will increase, what will happen? It will impact evaporation. It will impact evaporation. It will impact evaporation. So basically, IPCC has shown this particular correlation that aerosols have increased, because of that cloud cover has increased, because of that evaporation has got impacted, and because of that what has happened, monsoon is declining. But after some years, there will be the excessive rainfall, which will lead to the events such as the flooding, etc. Then Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal are warming faster than the global average. It will lead to higher cyclones, more number of cyclones, and even in Arabian Sea, more cyclones will be there. So we have seen that a large number of cyclones, largely, they have been in the Bay of Bengal, but now in Arabian Sea also, cyclones will be there. Okay, heat extremes have increased, cold extremes have decreased. Heat extremes are increasing, cold extremes are decreasing. You will even observe it during the months of winters. So these are important findings with respect to the IPCC 6 assessment report. And one particular thing is that I'll not advise you to go beyond this particular thing, whatever we have read it, for both your prelims as well as even your mains examination. But for prelims, obviously, you need not to go beyond this. One very, very important development in environment in the last 1.5-2 years. Moving to the next one, UN High Sea Treaty. UN High Sea Treaty.
Sir,
Yes.
Sir, Arabian
Yes.
Sir, why Arabian Sea more affected with cyclone? Bay of Bengal, sir, more number of rivers there occur, but Arabian Sea, why, sir?
See, when understand this particular thing, that when we talk about cyclones, so we find this particular thing, that one condition for the emergence for the cyclone is the surface temperature. So if surface temperatures will be high, then that particular thing will lead to the more cyclonic activity. And when we talk about the historical data, we find this particular thing, that more cyclonic activity has been there in the Bay of Bengal, which is because of the multiple factors, including even the shape of the sea that we have. Okay, historically, when we talk about the temperature readings, okay, so point is that there are multiple number of factors: the shape of the sea, the direction of the wind, okay, which has led to more favorable conditions in the what we say, Bay of Bengal. But now one additional favorable condition, that is high temperature, it is also developing in the Arabian Sea, which is now driving the cyclonic activity. Clear?
Yes, sir, clear. Thank you.
Okay. Now, UN High Sea Treaty. So guys, before going in this particular thing, first of all, let's discuss some basic understanding, and then we'll go in this topic. You see this thing, that we have United Nations Convention on Law of Seas. We have United Nations Convention on Law of Seas. And as per United Nations Convention on Law of Seas, suppose this is your coastline. All the rivers, lakes, ponds, whatever you have within the coastline, they are called as internal waters. Then area till 12 nautical miles. Area till 12 nautical miles, it is referred to as the territorial sea. Then after that, next 12 nautical miles, it is the contiguous zone. And from coastline till 200 nautical mile, we have exclusive economic zone. Now the country will have a power. That it can exploit this particular area for the resources. It can exploit this particular area, that is till 200 nautical miles, for the resources. By the way, just one particular thing, International Seabed Authority is organization which has been empowered by the UN clause, that it will give approval if you have to mine or if you have to exploit any minerals in your exclusive economic zone. And already India has been given permission by the International Seabed Authority to mine polymetallic nodules. In Indian Ocean region. So idea is that till 200 nautical miles, countries, they have a kind of a control, or they have a authority over this particular area. But when we go beyond 200 nautical miles, according to UN clause, it is high seas. Okay. And high seas, no country has a sovereignty over the high sea. High seas are the common resource. And because they are the common resource, this particular area, fine, it has just been exploited, but no country has bothered in the conservation of the high sea area. Large number of oil spills are there that are happening. Okay, often the shippings, they are polluting it. Okay, so for the first time, up till now, we did not had any treaty, or we did not had any agreement for the conservation of this high sea area. But now for first time, UN High Sea Treaty has been adopted. Okay, so it has been adopted by the Intergovernmental Conference on Marine Biodiversity of Areas Beyond National Jurisdiction. Okay, so Intergovernmental Conference on Marine Biodiversity of Areas Beyond National Jurisdiction. This particular treaty, it is also called as the BBNJ Treaty. So they are saying as the UN High Sea Treaty, or they are saying as the BBNJ Treaty, one or the same thing. So for the first time, we have this particular treaty. One thing, guys, that by mistake, this photograph has come down during editing. Maybe it had come down. So this photograph belongs to that IPCC article. Now, UN High Sea Treaty. Now, this particular treaty has been agreed under the framework of United Nations Convention on Law of Seas. Now, under this particular treaty, this particular treaty is legally binding in nature. It is legally binding in nature, and this particular treaty, what it provides? Number one, it provides for, it recognizes the rights and traditional knowledge of indigenous people, native people, with respect to the conservation of the seas, with respect to the conservation of water. It recognizes, and it provides for the it provides for the creation of the marine, it provides for the creation of the marine protected areas. So as we have national parks, as we have the sanctuaries for the land, at the land, for the conservation of flora and fauna, largely for the animals, we have as the national parks, etc. We have the biosphere reserves that we have on land. In the same way, marine protected areas are to be developed in high seas. Marine protected areas are to be developed in high seas. Also, freedom of scientific research is to be allowed, but exploitation of high seas should not be there. So UN High Sea Treaty has agreed it. Now, this particular treaty will come in force once at least 60 countries ratify it. Once at least 60 countries have ratified it. Up till now, if we talk about the status of India, India has not signed this particular treaty. India has not signed this particular treaty. Okay, so up till now, it has not come in existence. Maybe now the timeline that has been taken is till 2025. Maybe till then, it might get implemented. Okay. Next, Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, Global Biodiversity Framework Fund and GEF, Global Biodiversity Framework Fund and GEF. Now, again, before going in this particular article, some basic background information let's understand, and then we'll go in this particular article. Okay. So, you might have already read it in your environment classes that in 1992, Earth Conference was held, where United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was agreed. Here, in 1992, one more development happened, that is Convention on Biological Diversity. Convention on Biological Diversity, it was also an outcome of the 1992 Earth Summit. Now, when we talk about the Convention on Biological Diversity, it has three objectives. It has three objectives. Objective number one, CBD has three objectives. Objective number one, biodiversity conservation. Biodiversity conservation. Sustainable use of biodiversity. Sustainable use of biodiversity. And third objective was equitable sharing of benefits. Equitable sharing of benefits arising out of biodiversity. Suppose some country has identified a kind of a weed, a kind of a algae, which can treat, for example, cancer. Now, that resource is to be shared equitably. That particular resource is to be shared equitably. So CBD, biodiversity conservation, sustainable use of biodiversity, and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of biodiversity. Now, basically, countries, they meet they meet on regular basis to see that what they are doing to implement the goals of CBD. And there are the regular meetings that are held under the framework of CBD. These meetings are called as Conference of Parties. Now, we also have Conference of Parties under UNFCCC. We also have Conference of Parties under UNFCCC. Recently, there was a 28th Conference of Party meeting that was held in Dubai. That is separate. COPs are also held under the CBD. That is separate. Now, one more thing, guys, that in order to fulfill these three objectives of Convention of Biological Diversity, what has happened? the member countries, they have also come out with the additional protocols. They have also come out with the additional protocols. For example, there was Cartagena Protocol. Now, Cartagena Protocol was with respect to biosafety. Biosafety. So it talks about non-introduction of living modified organisms. Non-introduction of living modified organisms which can impact the native species. Okay. Then we have Nagoya Protocol. Now, Cartagena Biosafety Protocol, very simple words. You don't introduce any such genetically modified organism that can wipe out the original species. Don't introduce any such genetically modified organism. Cartagena Protocol on biosafety. Nagoya Protocol is on equitable sharing of Nagoya Protocol is on equitable sharing of the resources of biodiversity. Nagoya Protocol. Now, under Nagoya Protocol, so there were the Aichi targets that were taken. There were the Aichi targets that were taken in 2010. Aichi targets. Now, these Aichi targets, what largely they dealt with? They largely dealt with the conservation of biodiversity. They largely dealt with the conservation of biodiversity. Conservation of biodiversity, Aichi targets. They were adopted in 2010. Now, these targets, they got expired in 2020. In total, there were 20 targets that were there. Aichi, in total, 20 targets that were there, adopted in 2010, and they got expired in 2020. These targets were for biodiversity conservation and for equitable sharing of benefits of biodiversity. Two things, biodiversity conservation and equitable sharing of the benefits of biodiversity, Aichi targets. Now, as these targets got expired, some new targets are to be agreed. Some new targets are to be agreed. For example, we had Millennium Development Goals. So 2000 to 2015, we have Millennium Development Goals. As they got expired, we came out with Sustainable Development Goals. So now what has happened? Aichi targets have been renewed. And now you see this particular thing. What happened? There was actually Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that was agreed in COP 15 of CBD. So this is background. Now see this. In the COP, Conference of Parties Meeting 50, COP 15 of CBD, there was Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework Fund that was agreed. What this fund, framework that was agreed. What this framework is? This is the successor of Aichi targets that have already expired in 2020. Under this Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, under this, there were 23 targets that were agreed. There were 23 targets that were agreed. And these 23 targets, they were to be achieved by 2030. They were to be achieved by 2030. All these things will connect it. Just wait for 1 minute. 23 targets, they were agreed under the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. When to be achieved? Achieved till 2030. You are not required to remember all these 23 targets. You need to know the important targets. So the most important, number one, 30 by 30 target. 30 by 30 target. Now, what is 30 by 30 target? It talks that by 2030, 30% of the world's land and 30% of the coastal and marine areas are to be preserved, are to be conserved. Okay, 30 by 30. 30% of terrestrial ecosystem, 30% of marine ecosystem is to be preserved by 2030, one target. Then the another targets, for example, reduce the rate of loss of areas of high biodiversity value by at least half by 2030. So you see, Western Ghats, they are losing a lot of biodiversity. When we talk about the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia, okay, so Great Barrier Reef, it has lost around 70 to 80% of its corals already. Amazon rainforest, Congo basin, Borneo Mekong basin, they are losing their biodiversity. So that rate of loss of biodiversity is to be reduced by 50% by 2030. Then reduce the introduction of invasive alien species by 50%. Okay. Now there are many of the invasive alien species that we have. Lantana camara is there. Fine, many species. So their introduction is to be reduced by 50%. And arrange for 200 billion per year for the conservation of biodiversity. Fine, 200 billion, increase financial resources for by at least 200 billion per year. So now understand this particular thing. Now I will just tell you the timeline. We have CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity. It had 3 objectives. Okay, I'll just draw it down here so that it is more easy for you. So we have CBD. We have seen that there are certain goals of CBD. We have seen that there are Cartagena Nagoya Protocol, and there are also Aichi targets. These Aichi targets, they got expired in 2020. Now, as a successor of Aichi targets, what has happened? In COP15, Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was agreed. Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was agreed. Under this framework, there are 23 targets that are there. Okay, this is something that has happened. Now, guys, for the implementation of these 23 targets, we need money. What do we need? We need funding. From where that funding will come? From where that money will come if you have to implement these 23 targets? So for that, what has happened? Global Environment Facility, GEF, Global Environment Facility has been approved. That GEF will provide the funding, finances for the implementation of Global Biodiversity Framework. Now, when we talk about the GEF, so originally GEF was proposed that you are going to oversee its implementation. Recently, what has happened? There was the GEF Council meeting that was held in Brazil. There was the GEF Council meeting that was held in Brazil, and this GEF Council meeting, they have agreed that yes, we will see or we will provide the financial assistance for the implementation of the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Now, when we talk about this GEF, Global Environment Facility, it was established in after 1991 as a multilateral mechanism to oversee the implementation of many environmental protocols and treaties that are there. Now, I will explain that also. So basically, when we talk about the GEF, so GEF, Global Environment Facility, it is a multilateral fund. Multilateral fund means that multiple countries contribute to this particular fund. Okay. Now, GEF, it provides funding for Convention on Biological Diversity, even for UNFCCC. Now, there are many mechanisms that are there which are funding the UNFCCC. So, some of the components of UNFCCC are also funded by GEF. Okay. Then, Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, UN Convention to Combat Desertification, Minamata Convention on Mercury, and even for Montreal Protocol, GEF, Global Environment Facility, GEF, it serves as a financial mechanism. And now what has happened? It has approved that they will also support the implementation of the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Okay. What is that framework? Is 23 targets, fine, which have to be implemented, which have to be achieved by 2030. Now, GEF, it consists 185 member countries. I told you that it is a multilateral fund. So it contains 185 countries. India is a member of GEF. And the secretariat of GEF is in Washington, DC, US. So here in this, we have discussed actually multiple things. CBD, Aichi targets, then we have actually revised the Nagoya and Cartagena and all these things. Okay. Now, before moving on, I just want to ask you people that are you able to understand? Is there any doubt, anything you want to ask or you want me to clarify again? Please ask. Yes, is it clear? Anything you want to ask? Clear, clear. Fine. Nice. Okay. And in general sense also, just I'm asking this thing that you are able to understand all the things that we have discussed till now, right? Fine. Okay. Just so here, just you can recall what we discussed through this flowchart kind of a thing that we have prepared. Now, moving on to the next one, World Environment Day 2023. So, recently, 50th World Environment Day was observed. Now, 1972 Stockholm Conference. 1972 Stockholm Conference, which was the first high-level conference on climate change, pollution, etc. Now, in this conference, it was agreed that 5th June every year, 5th June every year will be observed as Environment Day. Why? Because this was the day when this in 1972 this conference was held. And from 1973 onwards, 5th June is observed as the World Environment Day. And 2023, 50th World Environment Day was observed. 2023, 50th World Environment Day was observed. And you know this thing already that when there is a 50-year anniversary, 25-year anniversary, 75 or something like that, UPSC asks a question on that particular line. You already know that thing. So therefore, it becomes important and all the related aspects we are going to discuss here. Now, when we talk about 2023 World Environment Day, 50th World Environment Day, it was hosted by the Cote d'Ivoire, which is an African country in precisely, to be very precise, in West Africa. Also, Netherlands. So Netherlands and Cote d'Ivoire, they hosted 50th World Environment Day and the theme was Beat Plastic Pollution. Now, India has also hosted World Environment Day and India hosted the 45th World Environment Day and India's theme was also same. So 45th World Environment Day was hosted by India in 2018 and its theme was also same, that is Beat Plastic Pollution, Beat Plastic Pollution. Now, as this one more thing guys that you can please note it down, you can please note it down in your notes that 2024 World Environment Day, please write, it will be hosted by 2024 World Environment Day, that is the 51st World Environment Day. It will be hosted by the Saudi Arabia. It will be hosted by Saudi Arabia and the theme is, please write theme. 2024 World Environment Day will be hosted by Saudi Arabia. Theme is land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. Theme is land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. Hosted by Saudi Arabia. Theme is land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. Fine. I hope you have noted it down. Now, so on the 50th, now this is about the World Environment Day. On 50th, some additional things are also there. On 50th World Environment Day, on that to mark that, there are certain scheme that was launched by India also. That is the MISTI. So Ministry of Environment, it launched MISTI. Now MISTI specifically aims to conserve mangroves. So MISTI stands for Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitat and Tangible Income. So this particular scheme was launched by which ministry? Ministry of Environment. What its focus is? Its focus is the conservation of mangroves and a specific area where the mangroves are to be conserved. That is Sundarban Delta in West Bengal region, Hooghly Estuary, and other bay parts of India. For example, other bays of the coast of Gujarat, etc. We have the mangroves. Okay, so for the mangrove conservation, we have also launched the scheme MISTI. Now, as we are talking about mangroves, some additional information, guys, you should note down. Now, when we talk about the mangroves, which states have the highest mangrove cover in India? Just please write them. So the highest mangrove cover is in West Bengal. Why? Because of the Sundarban Delta that we have in West Bengal. And Sundarban Delta actually is the largest mangrove cover in the world. So West Bengal. After West Bengal, we have Gujarat. West Bengal, then we have Gujarat. Then we have Andaman Nicobar Islands. Then we have Andaman Nicobar Islands. So these are the three Indian states having the highest mangrove cover. Highest mangrove cover. Clear? One more thing, when we talk about the mangroves, in India, the biggest threat to mangrove. Now, already in the past, UPSC has asked a question that wetlands in India are threatened by what? So, majority of wetlands in India, they are actually threatened by the paddy cultivation. In India, mangroves, majority of them, they are threatened by the shrimp cultivation. So, shrimp cultivation. This is the biggest threat to mangroves in India. They are the biggest threat to mangroves in India. Okay. And one more thing, that when we talk about the mangroves have a peculiar, now guys, you know this particular thing, that where mangroves grow. Now see, mangroves are a special type of forest which grow at intertidal zone where the land is meeting the ocean. Fine, there or where basically there these particular mangroves they grow. Now we find that often there is a lot of muddy water that will be there. There will be a lot of salty water that will be there. So basically mangroves, they have a peculiar ability, that is viviparity. Viviparity. What is viviparity? Now guys, adaptations have been asked already in UPSC question. For example, there was the question on the adaptation of the plants which grow in arid areas was asked, that they will have spikes, they will have thorns, fine waxy leaves will be there, something like that. So viviparity is an adaptation in the mangrove forest where the seeds, basically what happened, basically here the seeds germinate within the tree, and after the germination the seed falls on the ground. Okay, so seeds they germinate within the trees before falling on the ground. Viviparity. Again, I am explaining. Viviparity is a peculiar adaptation of mangrove plants or mangrove forest where the seeds they germinate within the trees and then they fall on the ground so that they can survive. So that they can survive. Okay. So with respect to mangroves. Now, guys, as we are talking about mangroves, this is one additional point I also added here because uh, sometimes there might be a confusion that will be there. There is also one more separate scheme that we have by the name of Amrit Dharohar. Okay, there is one more separate scheme that we have, Amrit Dharohar. Now, Amrit Dharohar is specifically for wetland conservation. So for wetland conservation, we have Amrit Dharohar. For mangroves, we have the Mishti. Okay, so just for an additional point, because it was also in news, I have added here Amrit Dharohar for wetland conservation, optimal use. Okay, optimal use, and it is a convergence based approach, a convergence based scheme. Sorry, what is convergence based scheme? Where multiple ministries and departments come together. Okay, fine. Now, so World Environment Day. So World Environment Day, it is observed under the aegis of which organization? It is observed under the aegis of UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. If you remember, already we have discussed the United Nations Environment Program when we were discussing the IPCC. And I told you that UNEP, it was created after the Stockholm Conference for specifically the environmental conservation. Okay, UNEP. Now, just one thing, guys. Yes. Now, when we talk about UNEP, just 1 minute, guys, give me 1 minute. Okay. Now, one more thing. As we talk about the UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, headquartered in Nairobi. So UNEP founded in 1972, headquartered in Nairobi. Now here guys, there are certain of the reports that are released by UNEP. Fine. So these are the reports. Now, one correction I just want you to make. Please strike down this 6 number, 8 number, 6 number, 8 number, and 11 number. 6, 8, and 11. So 6th, 8th, and 11th. Just cut it down, strike it down. Okay, fine. Now, apart from this 6th, 8th, and 11th, all these reports are released by UNEP. All these reports are released by UNEP. Global Environment Outlook Report, Frontiers Report, Emission Gap Report, Adaptation Gap Report, Emission Gap Report. Okay, already it came. Then State of Finances for Nature Report, Beat Plastic Pollution Report, Global Chemical Outlook. All these reports are released by UNEP, and UNEP also hosts the World Environment Day. It also hosts World Environment Day. Okay. I hope it is clear. Fine. Moving on to the next topic that we have here is that CORSIA plan was in news. CORSIA. Now, basically, guys, last year, there are two important developments that have happened. Basically, guys, understand this thing that transportation, international transportation, it is responsible for a lot of carbon emission. International transportation is responsible for a lot of emission. And for that, there are the two separate arrangements that have been there. One is CORSIA plan and other is the IMO strategy. IMO strategies on shipping that we'll see separately, don't worry. CORSIA is a plan to reduce the emission by the aviation aircrafts. Now, CORSIA, it has been adopted by International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. And what it aims to reduce the carbon emissions by the international aviation, international flights. International aviation, international flights. Now, it will establish a baseline on the basis of 2019 and 2020. So in 2019, 2020, what was the average carbon emission? On that particular basis, a baseline will be created, and on that basis, carbon emissions are to be reduced. This is the objective of CORSIA plan. Now it will be applicable to the only to international flights. It will be applicable only to international flights which are covered under the Chicago Convention. So two things you need to know about it. It applies to international flights. It does not apply to domestic flight. Okay. And 2019-20 is a baseline and carbon emissions are to be reduced. Then next, Blue Ocean event was in news. Now, what is this Blue Ocean event? Guys, Blue Ocean event refers to a climate tipping event or a climate tipping point. There is a word called as a climate tipping point. So climate tipping points or climate tipping events are those events which can bring the catastrophic, disastrous implications in the world's environment. Now you see this particular thing, that Blue Ocean event refers to that phenomena when the Arctic will become ice-free during summers. Arctic will become ice-free during summer. So what it refers? It refers to the Arctic Ocean becoming ice-free during summer. Area below the ice dropping below 1 million square kilometer. 1 million square kilometer. Now see this thing. Guys, according to IPCC, now you see this thing. First of all, IPCC point will just bring in a minute. Before that, what is the reason that glaciers are still, they have not melted? Reason is that because they are the glaciers. Why Arctic is still not melted? Because it is Arctic Sea. We know that these areas, as they are covered in ice is white in color. And as ice is white in color, it has a high albedo, means it can reflect a lot of incoming solar radiation. And as it is reflecting a lot of incoming solar radiation because of their white bright color, what is happening? The Earth's temperature is little bit less. Moment this particular ice will melt, Arctic, which is right now white in color, when it will become blue because the ice will melt, a lot of incoming solar radiation will be absorbed. And as a lot of solar radiation will be absorbed, what will be happening? It will be a climate tipping point. Suddenly, it will increase the global average temperature. It will suddenly increase the global average temperature. Also, if these ice caps, icebergs in the Arctic, they will melt. Also, they will undergo thermal expansion. According to IPCC report, majority of sea level rise that will happen, it is because of thermal expansion. What is thermal expansion? When the water is in the form of the ice, it is compact. But when the water will melt, it will undergo thermal expansion, water will expand. So in totality, it is a critical tipping point, will bring a disastrous, catastrophic changes. Now, there are multiple examples of climate tipping points that we have. Number one is the Arctic sea ice, which will melt. That is a climate tipping point. Second is a decline in the Amazon rainforest. And third is Atlantic meridional overturning circulation. What this AMOC is all about? So you might have already read in your geography that in Atlantic, there are a lot of ocean currents that are transporting heat. For example, now these ocean currents that we have, they are taking the warm water from the equator region to the polar region, and from polar region, they are bringing the cold water in the equatorial region. And in this particular way, they balance the temperature. So this circulation or this pattern of water currents that we have in the Atlantic region, they are called as the AMOC. Any disturbance in that, it is also an example of the climate tipping point. So even a question might be asked in your UPSC examination. They'll give a statement that just identify which of them are the type of climate tipping point. So Arctic decline in Arctic sea ice cover is a climate tipping point. Amazon rainforest decline is a climate tipping point. Disturbance in AMOC is a climate tipping point. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Green Credit Program. Green Credit Program, GCP. So now guys, what has happened? Recently, India has come out with this Green Credit Program. Green Credit Program. Now, this Green Credit Program has been launched under the aegis of Life Movement. Life Movement. Now, guys, Life Movement was started as a, now just one small concept I would like to explain you guys here. Conference of Parties 26. Conference of Parties 26, Glasgow. Conference of Parties 26 of UNFCCC. So UNFCCC COP26 was held in Glasgow. In Glasgow, India took Panch Amrit goals. India took Panch Amrit goals, which were 5 targets that India took. Okay. When we talk about the carbon neutrality by 2070. Okay, carbon neutrality by 2070. Okay, just I would like to ask from you guys, please write in the comment box, is becoming carbon neutral by 2070, is it India's INDC goal? To be carbon neutral by 2070, which India has spoken many number of times, is it India's INDC goal? So, yes, coming back. First of all, guys, INDC stands for Intended Nationally Determined Contributions. INDC, it stands for Intended Nationally Determined Contributions. So in Paris 2015, countries agreed that they themselves will take certain targets so that the global temperature can be kept in sustainable limit. These targets will be voluntary. And these targets were called as INDC, Intended Nationally Determined Contributions. India also took 3 INDC targets in 2015. I will discuss it when I am going to discuss with you COP28 and its outcomes. Now, India of Panchamrit is a separate thing. Panchamrit are 5 targets that India took in COP26. But this was not official revision of our INDCs. This is not the official revision of our INDC. Though INDCs we have updated recently, but Panchamrit was not the official updation of our INDC, and within the Panchamrit, carbon neutrality by 2070 was agreed. Okay. Here, we also announced that India will be coming out with a citizen-centric movement by the name of Life Movement. In the COP26, India agreed that we will be coming out with a citizen-centric movement, that is Life Movement. Now, understand this particular thing. Up till now, the movements that have been there, we target that, okay, government should reduce emission, industry should reduce emission. But here, citizens will try to reduce emissions. So, green credit program, it was announced in the budget of 23-24. What is this green credit program? So, understand this particular thing. So, here, 8 type of activities have been recognized. Citizens will do these particular activities, and in return, yes. So, what is this INDC? Intended nationally determined contributions. Intended means that these, see, countries are intending to do something. These are nationally determined. Nationally determined means that UN or UNFCCC is not going to impose on you. You have to, at your understanding, you have to determine intentionally nationally determined contributions. So basically, guys, what has happened, different countries way back in 2015, they have taken certain targets. For example, when we talk about India, India took 3 targets in 2015. Target number one, we will reduce our emission intensity by 33 to 35% by 2030. Will reduce our emission intensity by 33 to 35% by 2030. This was the first target that India took. Second, 40% of India's installed electricity will be coming from non-fossil sources. 40% of India's installed electricity capacity will come from the non-fossil sources, that is the solar, etc. And 2.5 to 3 billion ton of carbon sink will be developed. 2.5 to 3 billion ton of carbon sink will be developed. What it means that we will absorb this much of carbon by planting more trees, by doing the carbon sequestration. These are the 3 goals that India took way back in 2015. These are India's INDCs. The member countries under UNFCCC, they have taken such kind of goals as per their own understanding. This was India's official INDC. Now, Panchamrit. When we talk about the Panchamrit, under Panchamrit, there are the 5 targets that we have. Okay. And within the Panchamrit, by 2070, achieving carbon neutrality is one of a target. So I was explaining about the INDCs. So INDCs are countries' own determined contributions. These are the targets that the countries have adopted that they are going to achieve by 2030. Now, India also took 5 more targets that is called as Panchamrit. These are separate. They were taken in COP26. What are these 5 targets? Let me explain you that also. For example, first target was that basically non-fossil energy capacity will be reached to 500 gigawatt. 500 gigawatt of energy will derive from the non-fossil sources. Second was that 50% of India's energy requirement will come from renewable energy. Third was that carbon intensity will be reduced by 45%. Then there was to be carbon neutral by 2070. Okay, so these are the targets that were taken. Now there was a lot of confusion that is this the revision of INDC? Then on record, Ministry of Environment, they issued a notification and they said this particular thing that the Panchamrit are the targets that we have taken, that we'll try to do it, but this is not the official revision of our INDC. This is not the official revision of INDC. So a press release was released by the Ministry of Environment. One thing. So see, carbon neutrality by 2070 is not India's INDC goal. However, later, after Panchamrit goal, 1 year later, India revised its INDC also. That revised INDC also, these are the original INDC, revised INDC also I will discuss when I will discuss the COP28. Okay. So I hope that it was, I think, Sangeeta's question. I hope, Sangeeta, now it is clear or not?
Yes, absolutely, sir. Thank
Fine.
you so much, sir.
So this is the relation. See, because many a number of times I actually have seen that aspirants are confused that it is our INDC carbon neutrality. No, it is not INDC. Okay, and INDCs are country they determined by themselves. Now, moving on. Moving on. So, what we were discussing the green credit program. Now, what is green credit program? Green credit program is a program under life movement. Life movement is a citizen-centric movement that India said we will start, and India said it during the COP26 meeting. Now, here what is happening? So basically, for the 8 type of activities. So 8 type of activities. First of all, let's understand these 8 type of activities. What are they? Tree plantation. You can plant some tree. Water conservation, sustainable agriculture, waste management, air pollution reduction, mangrove conservation, eco-mark, sustainable infrastructure. Eco-mark I will discuss separately also, don't worry. So if any gram panchayat, if any individual, if any NGO, they are doing any of this kind of an activity, they will earn a green credit. They will earn a green credit. And that particular green credit can be traded. That green credit will have some monetary value. It can be traded. So what we are doing, we are nudging, we are incentivizing the individuals, industries, farmer producer organization, urban local bodies, gram panchayats, that they involve in these particular kind of activities. Why you will do these activities? Because you will get a tradable credit. That tradable credit will have a monetary value. And on the other side, it is leading to a positive impact on environment. It is leading to a positive impact on environment. Now, this green credit program, it will be administered by the Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education. Now, just a few days back, there was one more article that come on this green credit program. Guidelines were revised. Basically, Ministry of Environment, they expressed this particular thing that actually what can happen, certain individuals, they will plant the trees. But our objective is not just to plant the trees. Our objective is to ensure that whether these trees are surviving or not. So basically, one change was also brought, and for that also green credit program was in news. It was said that rather than giving credit on the plantation of tree, you give credit if the trees are surviving. If trees are surviving. So for that also it was separately in the news. So what is green credit program? Green credit program, it is an initiative under the life movement where individuals, gram panchayats, urban local bodies, they can do these kind of 8 type of activities, and for that they will earn green credit. That green credit can be traded with the industries. That green credit can be traded with the industries. Also, guys, what has happened? You see this particular thing. You see this particular thing, that there is a concept of corporate social responsibility. Now, Section 135 of Companies Act, Section 135 of Companies Act. So, under the concept of corporate social responsibility, companies had to commit certain expenditure as a CSR expenditure. Now, companies, what they can do? They can buy this green credit from the individuals, from the gram panchayats, and they can show it as their CSR expenditure as well. These are the changes that were also notified. Okay, so this is the green credit program initiative. Who has launched it? Ministry of Environment under the life movement. Now, one additional development is also there. Just I am putting it here because they are related. Now, green credit program was started domestically in India. And on this particular line, at the COP28 that was held recently in Dubai, what has happened? India and UAE, they have come out with a similar program. That is Global Green Credit Initiative. Global Green Credit Initiative. So green credit program is for India. Green credit program is in India. But Global Green Credit Program Initiative, sorry, it is a global program where communities, self-help groups, companies, they can involve in the environmentally sensitive activities, they will earn this particular credit, and they can trade this particular credit with the industries, with the factories, with the corporates. There will be a global platform will be developed. There will be a global platform will be developed. So suppose I have done some green activity in India, I can sell that particular credit to a company in some other country. So this is the green credit initiative that is there. Is it clear or not? Fine. And for this, there will be a green credit portal that will also be developed. Green credit portal, a digital platform, a digital repository will be developed for the implementation of this particular program. Okay. Yes, guys, is it clear or not? Yes. First of all, tell me, is it clear? Till this point, is it clear? Now,
Yes, sir.
there is also this National Carbon Registry. There is also National Carbon Registry. Now, what is this National Carbon Registry? National Carbon Registry, it is a software. It is a software which has been developed by UNDP. It is a software which has been developed by UNDP for managing of carbon credits. For managing of carbon credits. Now, carbon credits are earned by doing those activities which will reduce the carbon emission or which will absorb more carbon. So basically, this National Carbon Registry, it has been prepared by UNDP, and this is a kind of a software which can also be optimized for the green credit also, which can also be optimized for the green credit. Okay, so this is all about it. So just for the sake of better understanding, green credit program launched by India under the aegis of life movement. Okay, 8 type of activities, and not only applicable to individuals, it is applicable to individuals. They can do this activity, self-help groups can do, urban local bodies can do, panchayat can do. It has been written, and this particular credit can be traded. This credit can be traded. Then India and UAE, they have come out with a global green credit initiative at the global level. Okay, and National Carbon Registry, it is a software for the management of the carbon credits. Who has developed it? It has been developed by the UNDP. And this particular platform can be optimized for the management of the green credits also at the national as well as the global level. Now, moving on. Climate Polycrisis. So, Climate Polycrisis. Now, in past, if you have observed the UPSC CSE papers, you might know this thing that they are asking questions where they are asking certain keywords. For example, Goldilocks zone was in news. They have asked that what this particular keyword pertains to. So what is climate polycrisis? It refers to the interconnected and compounding crisis. Fine. Now see this particular thing. It refers to interconnected and compounding crisis which impacts multiple sectors. For example, let's say there is a flood. Let's say there is a flood. Now, flood is a natural disaster. Flood is natural disaster. Because of this flooding, what has happened? Agriculture got destroyed. Agriculture got destroyed. Because agriculture is destroyed, it will lead to an economic crisis. It will lead to economic crisis. Because agriculture got destroyed, food security of a country will be declined. It will lead to a social crisis. It leads to social crisis. So what is climate polycrisis? Climate polycrisis refers to such kind of a crisis where one sector will impact the other sector, and this crisis has largely been initiated or ignited because of the climate change that is coming. So it is compounding, interconnected, one crisis leading to other crisis, one crisis leading to other crisis. Fine, which initiates because of the climate change, which initiates because of the climate change. So let's say there is a drought. Now drought, it will lead to food insecurity, it will lead to hunger, it will lead to conflicts, many such kind of things. Then hydroclimate extremes. Hydroclimate extremes. Now what hydroclimate extreme is? So hydroclimate extreme, these are the extreme events pertaining to the hydrological cycle of Earth. Means water crisis. So we have one example. Just let me explain you. Let me explain you. There is concept of GLOF. GLOF stands for glacial lake outburst flood. Glacial lake outburst flood. So what these glacial lake outburst floods are, let me explain you. So you find, let's say there is a glacier. There is this glacier. Now this glacier is melting slowly. And as this glacier is melting, what will happen? It will create a water body in the upper reaches. It will create a water bodies. It will create a water body, which is called as glacial lake, which is called as glacial lake. Now, this particular water body, it is kept together by sand, pebbles, stones, etc. They keep this particular water intact. Sometimes what happen, either the rate of melting of this particular glacier will increase, the rate at which this glacier is melting, either that rate will increase, or let's say there is a sudden rain in the upper reaches of mountain. Suddenly, a lot of water will come in this particular glacial lake. A lot of water will come in this glacial lake. And this glacial lake, which was bound together by the pebbles, by sand, etc., this particular lake will fail. This lake will fail. And as this particular lake will fail, there will be a lot of water in very short span of time that will flood the downstream, that will flood the valley regions, that will flood the lower reaches of mountain. This event is called as the glacial lake outburst flood. You just focus on the name. Glacial lake outburst flood. A flood that has been caused because of the outburst of a glacial lake. So GLOF, it is a hydroclimate extreme phenomena. Now see this thing. We have seen that such kind of events have increased a lot. For example, in Chamoli, Uttarakhand, there was this glacial lake outburst flood that happened. Then in Northeast also, we have seen that this glacial lake outburst flooding event had happened recently. So what is this hydroclimate extremes? Hydroclimate extremes are the extreme phenomena which impact the water cycle or those particular kind of a crisis which is related to water. One example is glacial lake outburst flood. So what it refers to, it is unusual, intense climatic events related to Earth's water cycle. Earth's water cycle, encompassing atmospheric as well as the hydrological component. So crisis of water, extreme climatic events which pertain to water crisis, they are called as hydroclimate extremes. The examples are GLOFs, cloudburst, GLOF, cloudburst, unseasonal rains, okay, intense cyclonic activity. All these are the examples of hydroclimate extremes. Now, basically, according to IPCC report, hydroclimate extremes also are going to increase over the next few years. Hydroclimate extremes are also going to increase over the next few years. Now, it has specifically mentioned about the extreme, it has talked about the variation in the rainfall. So IPCC mentions that the extreme rainfall will be there in Western Ghats and Northeast River Basin, which will lead to flooding. There will be high rainfall, heavy rainfall in Upper Ganga and Indus Basin, extreme rainfall in Western Ghat and Northeast, high rainfall in Upper Ganga and Indus, and there will be drought because of no rainfall in Lower Ganga Basin. Lower Ganga Basin. Now, Lower Ganga Basin is area where we have a lot of population, and here it will have a drought. So, this is an example of hydroclimate extreme. So, unseasonal rain or the variation in the rainfall pattern, this is also an example of the hydroclimate extreme. Okay, moving on. So, point that I am trying to make here is that, guys, see these particular keywords multiple times in UPSC prelims paper questions around the keyword has been asked. They'll give you a keyword and will ask that, okay, what this particular keyword pertains to. Right now, it will look very simple that, okay, but once you go back and these multiple keywords are there, there might be some confusion that will come. So please pay attention on it right now. Then next we have here is ATACH, Alliance for Transformative Action on Climate and Health. ATACH, Alliance for Transformative Action on Climate and Health. Now, what is this ATACH? So ATACH is a facility that has been inaugurated by WHO, World Health Organization. World Health Organization. Now, what is this ATACH? ATACH is a platform. ATACH is simply a platform where countries or some of students' mic is unmuted. Please mute yourself. Yes, thank you. Okay. Alliance for Transformative Action on Climate and Health, ATACH. So what is this ATACH? ATACH is a dedicated platform that has been inaugurated under the aegis of WHO. Here, countries, organizations, civil societies, they can come together and can share technical know-how, can share studies, can share inputs with respect to the link between climate change and health. Link between climate change and health. If you remember, IPCC has mentioned that with the climate change, vector-borne disease will increase, respiratory disease will increase, circulatory disease will increase. So what has happened? WHO has launched this ATACH, which is a voluntary network, countries, organizations, civil societies, they can come and they can exchange information, they can exchange views with respect to cooperation, and the goal is to achieve the cooperation on climate change and the health ambitions. How climate change is fueling the health crisis on that particular front, information, technical know-how, best case studies can be shared here. Now, this ATACH, it is not a distinct legal entity. It does not have a separate legal status. It is a it is a platform within WHO, World Health Organization. Then, Summit for New Global Financing Pact. Summit for New Global Financing Pact. So recently, this summit was organized in Paris. This particular summit was organized in Paris. Now, what this particular summit mentions about? This particular Summit for New Global Financing Pact provides that additional funding is to be provided to the developing countries so that they can meet the climate goals. Now, see this particular thing. So basically, under the framework of UNFCCC, we follow common but differentiated responsibility principle. Common but differentiated responsibility principle. Under the CBDR principle, there is a climate finance that is to be provided by developed countries to the developing country. And in Copenhagen, around 2009, it was agreed that $100 billion, by 2020 latest, by 2020, should be provided by developed countries, to the developing countries. So maximum by 2020, $100 billion per year. This is per year. $100 billion per year are to be provided by developed countries to the developing country. This money developing countries will use for climate mitigation and all such kind of things. But up till now, this particular money has not come. And developing countries, multiple number of times, they have raised this particular matter that we need climate finance. And on this particular aspect, that providing the financing to the developing countries, this particular summit was organized. So this particular summit, what it aims? It aims at enhancing the crisis financing for low-income states, elevating their debt burdens. Okay, developing countries, they already have so much of debt. If they have to go for energy transition, for example, if they have to move from coal-based thermal power plants to the renewable energies, they need money. Already they have debt. They cannot take more debt. So we need to provide them financing so that they can meet with the climate change. So for that particular thing, this Summit for Global Financing Pact was hosted in Paris. Now, what this particular summit, what are the important key takeaways of this particular summit? Number one, multi-development banks, multilateral developmental banks, for example, Asian Development Banks is there, Okay, Asian Development Banks is there, World Bank is there, BRICS is there. They need to provide $200 billion to emerging economies. They should provide $200 billion. Fine. Now, this will not be a grant. This will be a kind of a loan, subsidized loan should be provided to the developing countries so that they can help, they can use that particular money in the energy transition for deploying renewable energy. Then, through special drawing rights, assistance should be provided to developing countries, and $100 billion worth of financial assistance is to be provided to developing countries through the SDR. Fine. Now, what is SDR, guys? So, one SDR, it refers to special drawing rights. Now, one thing you need to understand that SDR is specifically not a currency. It is a type of a currency, a form of currency. So, SDR is a form of currency or a type of currency, not technically a currency. SDR, its value, it is determined on the basis of 5 currencies that we have: US dollar, euro, yuan, yen, and pound. US dollar, euro, yuan, yen, and pound. So basically, on the base of these 5 currencies, SDR's value is determined. SDR is a special asset, or it is a special type of a currency that is used under IMF. So $100 billion worth of SDRs are to be provided to developing countries. Why? So that they can meet the climate mitigation. Okay. This has been agreed. Where it has been agreed? Under the Summit for a New Global Financing Pact. Where it was held? It was held in Paris. And the next is Just Energy Transition Partnership. Just Energy Transition Partnership. Under this Just Energy Transition Partnership, there will be 2.5 billion euros that will be provided to Senegal for deployment of renewable energies. Now, Senegal is a country in Africa. Senegal is a country in Africa. So, they will be provided assistance for the renewable energies. And then $100 billion climate finance. You remember, I have discussed it here. You remember? Anupam, please mute yourself. Okay. So you remember I told you that by 2020, $100 billion has to come. Up till now, that $100 billion has not come. So they have reaffirmed that this $100 billion climate finance that should have come by 2020 but hasn't come by 2020. It should reach by 2023. It should reach by 2023. So these are the outcomes of the new global financing pact, which was organized, or which global financing pact that has been agreed in Paris. Okay. Moving on. Okay, I hope that till this particular point, you have understood all the topics that we have discussed till this. You are able to understand, right? Next, short-lived halogens. Short-lived halogens. Okay. Now, short-lived halogens. Okay. Basically, first of all, guys, what are the short-lived halogens? Let's understand that, and then we are going to see development that has been there in the news. So, short-lived halogens, they are a specific type of gas. They are a specific type of gas. Okay, short-lived means they have a basically they stay in environment for so they have a life of few days to few weeks. Means that they'll not persist for more than few months. Maximum life is for certain days to certain weeks. Short-lived halogens. Now these gases, they include chlorine, bromine. Okay, so these contains the halogen elements. These are the gases that contain halogen elements such as chlorine, bromine, iodine. Now, short-lived halogens, these kind of gases, their impact on climate, it is debatable. Certain studies, they say that these short-lived halogens, they help in reducing the temperature. Certain studies says that they don't help in reducing the temperature, rather they increase the temperature. Now, you might have this particular question in your mind now, that how two conflicting things are being said. See this particular thing. When we talk about the short-lived halogens, these short-lived halogens, these kind of gases, they have certain peculiar impacts on environment. Number one, they reduce the ozone. Now, they reduce the ozone in um, um, troposphere. Okay. Now, guys, you see that here in the environment, now if you have ozone in the stratosphere, that ozone is good. Why? Because in stratosphere, ozone will block UVA, UVB, UVC rays, which is good. But if we have ozone in our environment, okay, then that particular ozone, it contributes to the rising temperature. But these short-lived halogens, what they do? They reduce this ozone. You can write here in the background. It reduce the ozone in troposphere. Okay. So if they will reduce the ozone, means that the temperatures will come down, means it will leave a cooling effect. Then what they do? They reduce the formation of cooling aerosols. Now, guys, when we talk about these aerosols are the tiny particles in environment, and they play an important role. What they do? They deflect the incoming solar radiation. They scatter the incoming solar radiation. And by this aerosols, they help in cooling the planet. So it has been said that actually what they do, they reduce the formation of cooling aerosols. Now, by this, what will happen? They will contribute in warming. Then further it is said that they increase methane's lifetime. Now, when we talk about methane, you know that methane, it is a gas which is responsible for the warming. Okay, and the warming potential of methane, it is many times higher than the CO2. What they do? They increase the lifetime of methane. Now, by that also, it will raise the temperature. Okay, fine. So point is that basically the short-lived halogens, they are also increasing the lifetime of methane. By that, it will contribute positively in the rising temperatures. But at the same time, they reduce the ozone's life. By that, they are cooling the planet. What is the net effect of this short-lived halogen? This has been debatable up till now. What is net effect? In a net, it is warming, or in net, it is cooling the planet. That was debatable. So recently, this article came in Down to Earth. And in this particular article, researchers, they have concluded that the net effect of the short-lived halogen is that what they are doing, they are cooling the planet. And who releases this short-lived halogens? Majority of these short-lived halogen gases, they are released by oceans. So they are cooling the planet, and they are contributing to 8 to 10% of the cooling of planet. Now you see this particular thing. Phytoplanktons in sea, algae in sea, they release these short-lived halogens, and by that, net cooling of planet is happening. Okay, so again, just I will conclude, it was up till now, it was debatable that what is their net impact in net capacity, whether these short-lived halogens are reducing the temperature or they are increasing. So now they have said that they are leading to the cooling of the atmosphere.
But
Okay. Yes.
sir, methane gas is also known as the greenhouse gas. So
Yes.
how it cooling the temperature?
Right, that's what I said now. I also said this thing that methane, it is a gas which has a global warming potential, and even methane's global warming potential is higher than the carbon dioxide. Yes, methane is a greenhouse gas. And what these short-lived halogens do? These short-lived halogens, they increase the life of the methane. In that capacity, what they are doing? They are actually contributing in increasing the temperature. But on the other hand, what they are doing? They are also reducing the ozone in the environment. By that, they are leading to cooling. Now, what is more, whether their net impact on cooling is more, or whether their net impact on heating the environment is more, that was the controversy. Now, this particular now what has happened, it has been concluded that in net, In total, these short-lived halogens, they are cooling the environment. Just understand with a simple analogy, see this thing. I am spending money and I am earning money. Okay, I am spending 100 rupees every month, but I am earning 150 rupees every month. In net, will my savings be more every month or less? They will be more. Why they will be more? Because though I am spending 100 rupees, but I am earning also, I am saving also 150 rupees. I am earning 150 rupees, though I am spending 100 rupees. So net, I am saving more. So these short-lived halogens, they heat by increasing the life of methane, but they cool also by reducing the ozone. So what is the net effect? Net effect is cooling. This controversy has now been settled. Yes, dear. Now is it making sense or not? Are you able to understand? Is it clear now or not?
Yes, thank you.
Fine.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Then next is IMO strategy on reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So if you remember, a few minutes back, we discussed about the CORSIA plan. Few minutes back, we discussed about the CORSIA plan. Now, what was the CORSIA plan? CORSIA plan was with respect to the reduction of CO2 emissions by the international flights. That time I told you that there is one strategy for the shipping also that has come, and that is this IMO strategy. Now, you see this particular thing, 2.8% of anthropogenic emissions. Anthropogenic means by the humans. 2.8% of anthropogenic emissions, it is because of shipping. It is because of shipping. So it is very important that we need to decarbonize the shipping sector. We need to decarbonize the shipping sector. And this IMO strategy is for the decarbonization of shipping sector. IMO stands for International Maritime Organization. International Maritime Organization. And IMO, it has said that now the shipping sector, they have to take the binding targets that they will reduce their carbon emission so that the global temperatures can be kept in a check. So basically, shipping industry, it contributes to 2.89% of anthropogenic emissions. And what is the aim of this IMO strategy? What is the aim of IMO strategy? Reduce CO2 emission by 40% by 2030 compared to 2008 level. So basically multiple targets are there. Number one, 40% reduction in CO2 emission will be done by 2030, and shipping will become carbon neutral by 2050. Shipping will become carbon neutral by 2050. So IMO strategy. Okay. IMO strategy for shipping. CORSIA plan is for aviation. The next we have here India Climate Energy Dashboard 3.0. India Climate Energy Dashboard 3.0. So recently NITI Aayog has released this India Climate Energy Dashboard 3.0. What this particular dashboard is all about? So this particular dashboard gives real-time information with respect to renewable energies that we have, with respect to the carbon emissions that we are doing. About all these particular factors, real-time information is given. So what it is simply a one-stop platform for real-time data on energy sector, climate, and related data sets. Then Ecocide. Okay, Ecocide. Now, what is Ecocide? So Ecocide refers to those offenses, those crimes that have been committed against ecology, against environment, against nature. Now, this particular term that is Ecocide, it became popular after US conducted Operation Ranch Hand. Now, what is this Operation Ranch Hand? So during Vietnam War, USA developed deadly herbicides. USA developed deadly herbicides. What is a herbicide? Herbicide is a chemical which can kill certain variety of plants. Herbicides. Now, basically, under this Operation Ranch Hand, multiple type of herbicides were developed And one is the Agent Orange. One was the Agent Orange. Now, what is Agent Orange? It was a herbicide, a chemical that USA used during the Vietnam War. It was used and it destroyed the agriculture in certain parts of Vietnam. And since then, agriculture is not possible where they use this particular Agent Orange herbicide. So by this term became popular, ecocide. Ecocide means the crime against environment, crime against ecology, crime against environment, or crime against ecology. So this ecocide. Now, ecocide was recently in news that certain type of crimes should be regarded as ecocides, and different countries need to come out with the law defining ecocide. So therefore, it was in news. So what is ecocide? Unlawful acts committed with the knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of long-term damage to environment. Long-term damage to environment. Then next, we have here is Atlantification. Atlantification. Okay. Atlantification. Now, what is Atlantification? So Atlantification was also in news. It refers to a phenomena. It refers to a phenomena of Arctic Ocean becoming like Atlantic. Phenomena of Arctic becoming like Atlantic. Now, guys, you know this particular thing, that Atlantic Ocean, okay, Atlantic Ocean, we have Arctic Ocean, and let's say here we have the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean. Now there are water currents that are bringing water from Atlantic to Arctic. Atlantic to Arctic. Now understand this particular thing. Water that is coming from Atlantic to Arctic, it is not mixing freely with the water of Arctic. Why it is not mixing freely? Number one, temperature difference. Number one is the temperature difference. Upper layers of Arctic, they are largely frozen. Upper layers of Arctic are largely frozen. Then there is a cold water, and then there is the water which is relatively warmer. Now, when we talk about the water coming from Atlantic, it does not mixes with the cold water of Arctic because of this huge difference in temperature as well as difference in salinity. So, due to the salinity difference and due to the temperature difference, there are the layers that are created in the Arctic. Atlantic's water does not get mixed. But now what is happening, as blue ocean event is happening, as water is melting, as the ice caps are melting in Arctic, temperature in Arctic is increasing. And as the temperature in the water is increasing, now that particular water's temperature will become similar to the temperature of Atlantic it will become similar to the temperature of Atlantic, and water will mix freely. So Atlantic's water will mix freely with the Arctic's water, and Arctic will become like Atlantic. And this process is refers to Atlantification. So it is a process in which warm water from Atlantic is being advected in Arctic, and it is mixing with Arctic freely. And certain parts of Arctic, they are becoming like Atlantic. And particularly here, Barents Sea, it is now closely resembling to Atlantic. Okay. And let me just show you also here so that you can have a better picture here. Okay. So basically, guys, here, if you observe, we have Atlantic Ocean. We have Atlantic Ocean here. And from here, the water is being advected to this Arctic region. Right now, the water in the Atlantic, it is not mixing with the Arctic region because of the temperature and salinity differences. But now, particularly around the Barents Sea region, this water is getting mixed up. So Arctic is becoming like Atlantic. This is the Atlantification process. This is the Atlantification process. Okay. Then next we have COP28. COP28. Okay, and important key takeaways from COP28. First of all, guys, up till now, if you have any doubt, a lot of topics we have covered till now. So just I want to ask, if you have any doubt, you can please ask your doubt as of now. Yes. Just I want that you please go through all the topics that we have done till this point of a time. Take 1 minute, 2 minute time. I'm just standing here. Take 1 minute, 2 minute time. Please go through all the topics that we have done and just ensure that you are able to understand all of them. There is no doubt. Just ensure that particular thing. And if there is any doubt, please ask those particular doubts. Okay, take 1 minute's time, please.
So, could you please explain that one more time about Ecocide, how it got popular,
How?
how
Please
that
ask
got
it.
popular, about that UK incident, I guess. Like I
See,
somehow
see,
missed.
actually, what is ecocide? You need to first of all understand what is ecocide. Ecocide refers to the crimes against ecology. Okay, crimes against or harm against ecology. What is suicide? Suicide is an act when a person kills himself. That is suicide. Ecocide. Ecocide is a killing or the harming of environment, ecology. So certain acts which are done where a person knows that this particular activity will harm the environment, will harm ecology, that act is called as ecocide. Now this term ecocide became popular in 1970 when USA, they developed a range of herbicides, deadly chemicals that can wipe out the agriculture. And they developed this Operation Ranch Hand. Under Operation Ranch Hand, multiple herbicides they developed, and one of a herbicide by the name of Agent Orange, they used in Vietnam, which led to the destruction of agriculture. And even till today, agriculture is not possible in certain areas where they used this Agent Orange chemical. So after that, this ecocide became popular, and now, guys, there are many countries which knowingly are doing certain activities which are harming the ecology. So there were the calls that were there that were made that countries should define the ecocide, and in their legislative framework, they should define that what type of activities will be counted as ecocide. So this is it was in the news. Is it clear or not?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, others, guys, any other question if you have? I hope that you have just scrolled these topics that we have discussed. Yes, any question to anyone? Yes, any question, anyone? Okay, so I'll just continue and we'll move to the next topic. COP28. COP28. So basically, guys, COP stands for Conference of Parties. Conference of Parties. Now, basically, we are talking about the Conference of Parties under UNFCCC. UNFCCC. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That was agreed in 1992 in Earth Summit. In Earth Summit. Now, I'll not go too much in detail in Earth Summit because already you might have seen it in your environment classes. So, Earth Summit 1992 UNFCCC was agreed, and member countries regularly they meet in these annual meetings which are called as Conference of Parties. So last year was actually 23 only. So last COP was COP28 that was held in Dubai. That was held in Dubai. Before that, COP27, it was in 2022 and it was held in Egypt. It was held in Egypt. Before that, COP26, It was held in Glasgow, where Panchamrit goal were taken by India. I have told you. Now this COP28, it is very important. This particular COP28 is very important. Can anybody tell me that why this COP20 is particularly more important? Yes, guys, can anybody just tell me? I don't want the detailed explanation. If you just give me some keyword that for this it was important. I don't want explanation, just keyword if you can give me, anybody. COPs happen almost every year, but this COP28 is particularly more important. Can you tell me anyone can tell me why? Yes, nobody. Hanji, not even a single student. It was important because of first, global stock take exercise. First, global stock take exercise. What is this global stock take? We'll understand that, don't worry. But first global stock take was it was conducted in the COP28, and this is the reason that it is very, very important. Okay, and there is a probability that a question can be asked. Now, basically, first of all, let me start with the GST only. First of all, let me start with the GST only. Now, guys, 2015, Paris Agreement was adopted. Already, you know, multiple times we have discussed. 2015 Paris Agreement was adopted. And in this particular Paris Agreement, we have seen that we have taken a goal that will try to, reduce the global temperature to below, target was taken that will try that global temperature should not rise by more than 2 degrees Celsius. And if possible, temperature should not rise by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. So 1.5 degrees Celsius is more ambitious goal. So in Paris Agreement, we agreed it. And to fulfill it, what happened? Different countries took INDC goals. Different countries took INDC goal. I told you that India also took the INDC goals. We discussed these 3 INDC goals of India also. That India took these 3 INDC goals. Likewise, different countries have taken their INDC goals. Likewise, different countries have taken their INDC goals. Now, we need to assess that, okay, you have taken the goals and you are trying to achieve a target that is of 2 degree and 1.5 degrees Celsius. But by doing this, are you able to reach your targets or not? Are you able to reach your targets or not? Understand this thing. Basically, guys, let's say, now see, every aspirant, what they do, they make a plan that, okay, I will read polity for these many hours, I'll read geography for these many hours, I'll read science and technology for these many hours. They make a plan. And why they make a plan? They make a plan so that they prepare for this examination, so that their preparation is good. Now, let's say I am following a particular plan. It is always advisable that I should stop for a moment and I should reflect that the plan that I'm following, is that plan taking me near to my goal or not? Is that plan taking me near to my goal or not? For example, I want to lose weight. I made a plan that, okay, I'll eat these type of foods and I will lose the weight. I need to measure my weight also once a week or 10 days, 15 days to see that whether my plan is taking me near to my goal or not. So goal is this. And the plan that the countries have taken is INDC. So countries have taken their INDC goals. Now in 2015, when the Paris Agreement was agreed, it was provided at that point of a time that in 2023, the first GST is to be done. First GST is to be done. Means the first global stock take exercise is to be done. Means you need to assess that whether your INDCs are helping or not. If your INDCs are helping to reach that goal, good. If they are not helping, then you have to revise your INDCs. So first assessment exercise was to be done in 2023. And after that, every 5 years. After that, every 5 years, global stock take is to be done. So means first stock take happened in 2023. Second stock take now will happen in 2028. So this is a very important thing for which this COP28 becomes important. Now, by the way, guys, India has already revised its INDC goals. I told you that particular thing. So first Panchamrit came, and after Panchamrit, 1 year later, we revised our INDC goal. What is the present INDC of India? I am just writing here. So originally, India has to reduce its carbon intensity by 33 to 35%. Now it has been increased to 45%. So we'll increase our, we'll reduce our carbon intensity by 45%. Secondly, 40% of India's installed electricity capacity should come from non-fossil. Earlier 40%. It has been increased to 50%. It has been increased to 50%. This one is the same. So I hope that you got this idea also. Okay. So India actually, according to Climate Tracker report, India was overachieving its INDC. For example, target was 40% of installed electricity capacity by non-fossil by 2030. We already reached 41% in 2022. So we were overachieving our INDCs. We have already revised it. But INDCs and Panchamrit are two separate things. Okay, till this point, I hope it is clear to everyone. What is global stock take exercise? Global stock take exercise was prescribed in the Paris Agreement. It is an assessment exercise which is to be taken for the first time in 2023. And after that, every 5 years, global stock take is to be done. What is global stock take? It is simply an assessment to review that whether the INDC goals are taking us near to the Paris Agreement's targets or not. Under the Paris Agreement, we have taken a target that will ensure that the temperature should not rise beyond 2 degree and 1.5 degree. So whether our INDCs are helping or not, we need to review it. That is the global stock take. Okay. Guys, I hope it is clear. Now, what are the key takeaways of COP28? What are the key takeaways of COP28? Global stock take, I'll discuss in the last, it has been, the notes are also given here, don't worry. Here, fine. Now, coming back. So what are the important takeaways of COP28? Number 1, energy efficiency pledge. Energy efficiency pledge. Now, what is this energy efficiency pledge? Under energy efficiency pledge, there are two things that are there. Number 1, renewable energies are to be tripled by 2030. 11,000 gigawatt renewable energies are to be deployed. By 2030, renewable energies are to be tripled. Number 1. Number 2, energy efficiency is to be doubled up by 2030. Energy efficiency is to be doubled up by 2030. For example, you have AC in your room. Now that AC will consume certain electricity. Now let's say it is a 2-star AC. If you replace that 2-star AC with 5-star AC, it will do the same cooling but will take less electricity. So what we need to do? We need to increase the efficiency of electrical appliances. We need to double the energy efficiency. So energy efficiency is to be doubled and renewable energies are to be tripled up by 2030. This is the energy efficiency pledge. India has not signed it. Around 118 countries have signed it. India has not signed it. Please keep it in your mind. Next is climate finance. Climate finance. So guys, if you remember, I earlier also mentioned that $100 billion has to come to develop, $100 billion have to come to the developing countries by 2020, but that has not come. There are multiple funds in which the money is not coming by the developed countries. So around $83.9 billion of climate finance is pending, which is to be provided in the Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Funds, LDC Fund, Special Climate Change Fund. $83.9 billion are pending. They are due. They are to be provided by developed countries to developing country. Next is, now these numbers are not that important. Don't focus too much. The next is Lead It 2.0. Now, what is this Lead It 2.0? Now, Lead It is a joint initiative between India and Sweden. It was started in 2019. Now its second phase has been started. Therefore, it is called as Lead It 2.0. Lead It 2.0. Now, what is this Lead It 2.0? So Lead It 2.0, it is a plan for just industry transition and transfer of low carbon technology. Now, guys, just industry transition. So basically, today industries, they are using the type of fuels which are not very much efficient. Basically, they are using the so basically point is that we need to use more and more renewable energies. We need to use more and more non-fossil based fuels, electric energies in our industrial system. So basically, under this Lead It 2.0, India and Sweden will provide the low cost energies, low cost solutions for the decarbonization. Okay. Originally, it was started in 2019. Then Global River Cities Alliance. River Cities Alliance. So India's National Mission for Clean Ganga. India's National Mission for Clean Ganga, or India has started with this Global River Cities Alliance, in which India is going to focus on river-centric development. Now, guys, understand this particular thing already. Namami Ganga project is there, Earth Ganga project is there, where we are focusing on river-centric development. So around the world, different cities which are based on rivers, they are going to sign an MOU. They are going to sign an MOU with the Ministry of Jal Shakti, and the Ministry of Jal Shakti will give them technical know-how with respect to the river-centric development. So this Global River City Alliance, it is being steered, it is being led by India for the river-centric development of the cities. Then next we have is Green Industrialization Initiative. Green Industrialization Initiative. Now, this Green Industrialization Initiative is for the decarbonization of industrial sector. For the decarbonization of industrial sector, to reduce the carbon footprint of industries. Now, it has been launched by the African countries. So here what will happen? For the decarbonization of industrial sector, developed countries will help the African countries. They will provide them technical know-how. They will provide them the technologies. They will provide them the financial inputs also. So, Green Industrialization Initiative. Now, one thing is that, guys, you need to understand that what program is focusing on what theme. For example, Lead It 2.0. It is also focusing on decarbonization, but it is led by India and Sweden. Green Industrialization Initiative, it is also focusing on decarbonization, but it is adopted by the African countries. Climate Club. Now, Climate Club is also talking about the decarbonization of industrial sector. So we have three programs. We talk about decarbonization. Climate Club, Green Industrialization Initiative, and Lead It. But Lead It is led by India and Sweden. Green Industrialization Initiative, it is adopted by the Western countries themselves. African countries themselves. Climate Club, now it is an initiative by 36 countries. Now it has both developed and developing countries. Both the developed and developing countries. In total, 36 countries are there, and it is being led by Germany and Chile. So basically, what it will do? It will help in the decarbonization of industrial sector. decarbonization of industrial sector. Then next, phase down of coal. Phase down of coal. Now, what is this phase down of coal thing? Basically, guys, this has little bit of a background. Let me explain you. In COP26, there was a controversy that developed, phase down versus phase out. Phase down versus phase out. See, what is a phase down? Phase down means that the coal's usage is to be reduced. Coal's usage for energy, coal's usage for electricity is to be reduced. That is the phase down. Phase out is eliminate the use of coal. Phase out is to entirely eliminate coal. Phase down is to reduce the usage of coal for electricity for energy requirement. Now in COP26, developed countries, they insisted that we need to move towards the phase out of coal. We need to move towards the phase out of coal. Completely eliminate the coal in energy systems, eliminate the coal for energy, electricity. Countries such as India, developing countries, they had a problem with this particular word, that is phase out. Why? Because guys, even today, if you see, coal happens to be a major source of energy for India. And it is actually a cheap source of energy also. So India and developing countries said that it is not possible for us to go for the phase out. We need cheap energy. So India resisted it. And finally, what happened? Rather than phase out, in COP26, phase down was agreed. Phase down was agreed. Now in COP28, again this phase out, phase down controversy got started. Again, India and developing countries resisted that we don't want to move towards the phase down. We want to move towards the phase. We don't want to go towards the phase out. It is not possible for us. We want to go for the phase down. Okay. And it has been agreed. It has been agreed. It was dropped. Phase out was dropped. Phase out was dropped and the phase down was agreed. Then methane emission cuts. Methane emission cuts. Now, basically, guys, just one thing is that when we, if you remember, methane is a greenhouse gas. Methane contributes in the global warming. Methane contributes in global warming. Now, historically, developed countries, they have said that the countries should take the binding commitments with respect to reduction of methane. And in COP21, that is 2026 Glasgow. Sorry. My apologies. COP26. Fine. COP26 Glasgow. So in COP26, what happened? Global methane pledge was agreed. Global methane pledge was agreed in COP26 Glasgow. Under this global methane pledge, it has been provided that methane has to be cut down by 30% compared to 2020 level, by 2030. Okay, I hope you understood it. Global methane pledge, what it provided? It provided that by 2030, 30% reduction in methane emission should be done compared to what was the baseline? Baseline was 2020. Now this global methane pledge, India did not agreed. India did not agreed in COP26. Why India did not agreed? Because what is the major source of methane? Major source of methane actually is agriculture and cattle. Agriculture and cattle rearing. And you know that India has so much of cattle population, and agricultural practices in India also are leading to substantial methane emissions. So India did not agree it to at that point of a time. Now here also, that is in COP28 again, methane emission cuts, they were suggested. it was provided that, now see guys, here it says, now this, it was said that it is 80 times more potent compared to CO2. Some other studies says that it is 20 to 25 times more potent to CO2. Okay, we don't have any one conclusive thing here, but yes, it is more potent than CO2, that is for sure. And it has been provided that we need to take a binding agreement for the reduction of methane. But this year also, 2028 COP also, India did not agreed for any binding commitments for the reduction of methane. Then, loss and damage fund. Now, loss and damage fund's idea was originally conceived in COP27 Egypt. Loss and damage fund idea was originally conceived in COP27 Egypt. Now, what is this particular idea? Understand very carefully. Guys, see, there are two type of concepts that we have. One is mitigation fund and one is the loss and damage fund. Now, what is first of all mitigation fund? See, climate change is happening. So to mitigate the negative impacts of climate change, countries should get some money. Developing countries should get money. Now, you remember that $100 billion that is to be given by 2020? That is largely the mitigation. That is largely the mitigation and adaptation fund. That is largely for mitigation and for adaptation. Okay. Now, loss and damage fund is a new idea. Now, see this particular thing. Certain countries will face permanent damage because of the climate change that will happen. For example, suppose there is an island nation which depends on tourism. There's an island nation which depends on tourism. Now, because of the climate change, what will happen? Important tourist spots that are on the coastline, they will be submerged. And because of that, permanent damage, permanent loss of economy they will face. Permanent loss of economy they will face. So for that kind of a damage, they need to be given money. So the idea of loss and damage fund was agreed in the COP27 Egypt. And this year, finally, money has been contributed to this loss and damage fund, and around $800 million contributions were made. After that, some more contributions have also been made. This number is not important, but the money has been contributed to this loss and damage fund. But there is a problem with this loss and damage fund, and the problem is this. See, first of all, there is no mechanism that once this $800 billion have been used, how this particular fund will be replenished. Okay, there is no mechanism of yearly payments. Fine. So once that money is being used, how it will be replenished? It is not provided. It is not provided. Second is that which country will get the money, that is also not decided. Now, every country will demand certain fund. Every country will say that, okay, give us money. We are facing the damage. India will ask the money. But what are the principles on whose basis you will give that money? That is not clear. And right now, World Bank is going to host this loss and damage fund. Fine, for the 4 years. It will take its fees and the money will come down. This was the issue that came. Okay. Now, guys, whatever we are discussing here, so this is actually the distilled version of at least 12 to 15 articles that have been there talking about the different controversies. Okay. Then next is global goal on adaptation. Global goal on adaptation. Now, basically, what is adaptation? Adaptation is to learn how to live in a world where the climate change has happened. Adaptation. Mitigation is to reduce the negative impacts of climate change. Adaptation is to learn to live with the changed world that will be there after the climate change. Now, historically, adaptation has not been given that much importance. Historically, adaptation has not been given that much importance. And what happened in Glasgow conference, it was decided that a 2-year program on global adaptation will be designed. And the global goal on adaptation was agreed, where countries were asked, cities were asked that they need to prepare their adaptation plan, that how they are going to live in the world where the climate change has already happened. So now the countries have to prepare this plan. First time it was discussed in Glasgow. Okay. The next is global stocktake. Global stocktake. So already we have discussed global stocktake. What is global stocktake? Global stocktake is a kind of an assessment that was to be done for the first time in 2023. It was provided in 2015 Paris Agreement. Here, the countries will see that whether they are on a track to meet that 1.52 degree goal or not. And it is not a surprise. This GST has found, global stocktake has found that we are not on the path. It is just like a realization. An aspirant realizes just before the prelims examination that my preparation is not up to the mark, that I clear the final list. I might clear the prelims, but maybe in optional or somewhere there is a problem. There is a gap that is there. So there is a huge gaps in the way the world countries are dealing with the climate change and related issues. So what it has suggested, now this is very important for mains examination. At that point of a time, you need to focus more on this, but I will just give you an idea. So they say this particular thing, that we need to focus more. They say that global emissions are to be reduced by 43% by 2030. Whatever emissions we have, we need to reduce them by 43% by 2030, 60% by 2035, and net zero is to be reached by 2050. Compared to 2019 level, 43% reduction by 2030, 60% reduction by 2035, and net zero by 2050. Only then there is a possibility. Only then there is a possibility that we can meet the our targets. Okay. Certain other steps have also been suggested. That is tripling renewable energy capacity, accelerating efforts towards the phase down. Okay, accelerating substantially reducing non-carbon dioxide emissions such as the methane, etc. So simply what you can do, you can just go through this particular list. It has been suggested. More importantly, this is to be read for mains examination. GS3. Is it clear or not? Fine. Moving on. The next is developing countries demanded to define climate finance. Now, this is one very important contention between the developing and developed countries. Now, see this particular thing. You remember, developed countries have to give $100 billion. Developing countries have, developed countries have to provide $100 billion to developing country. Now, basically, climate finance definition is not very clear. And any money that is being given by the developed country to developing country, they are marking it as a climate finance. For example, let's say USA gave $5 billion to developing countries for education. Now they will mark that also as a climate finance. Now, if I ask USA that you have given the money for education, why you are saying it as a part of climate finance? So USA will give explanation something like this, that if people will get educated, they will learn about the environment. I will say yes. If they learn about environment, they'll not pollute. If they will not pollute, what will happen? Climate change will not happen. So this is contributing to environment. Now, this is obviously an absurd logic. And basically, guys, if you see, there are the conflicting claims that are there. For example, if we talk about the OECD report, this says that in 2020, $83 billion were given by the developed country. But according to Oxfam report, only $22 billion were given by the developed country to developing country for climate finance. Why this difference? Because the way you define climate finance, it is not clear. So it is to be defined. This demand was made, and then Prime Minister of India also suggested that India wants to host the COP, Conference of Parties, in 2028. So basically, India has requested, or India has suggested, that we want to host COP 33 in year 2028. Okay. Now the question comes that has India earlier ever hosted the COP meeting? So if a question comes in UPSC examination, yes, India has earlier hosted in 2002. India has hosted the COP in 2002, and now India wants to host again. That is in 2028, 33rd COP. Then next was Altera. Okay. Altera. Now, what is this Altera? So Altera is a dedicated fund. Now, Altera, it is a fund It is a $30 billion privately managed fund that has been proposed by UAE. And this particular fund will make climate investments. So what is this Altera? Altera is a privately held climate fund. Privately held climate fund. It is not a sovereign fund. Mean it is not being held by the government of UAE. It is a private fund proposed by the UAE. Now, this particular fund will make climate investments, will support climate sensitive projects. For example, it can sponsor some renewable energy project. It can sponsor some solar power park. Okay. Now, this particular fund will invest $30 billion. It is a $30 billion fund. And over the years, it aims to raise $250 billion by 2030. Okay. So if a question comes that Altera was in news, what this Altera is, it is a privately managed fund proposed by UAE. It will make climate investments. Fine. It is a $30 billion fund, but over the years, it will grow to $250 billion by 2030. And this particular fund has a specific investment plan for India also. So it will spend money for deployment of 6 gigawatt of clean energy capacity. 6 gigawatt of clean energy capacity will be developed through the money by this Altera fund. Okay. So this is about it. This is about it. Fine. Yes, guys. I hope that it is clear to all of you. Yes. So one very important section we have done. Quickly tell me that is it clear to everyone? Yes or no? Any question, any doubt if you have, you may please ask. Yes, guys, please, please take some effort. If there is any question, any doubt, you may please ask your doubt, and don't be too lazy. Just write yes, clear, no. If no, then please ask if there is any question. Okay, there is one question. Loss and damage fund is only for permanent damage or mitigation? No. Yes, very good question. First of all, loss and damage fund is only to be given to those countries which has faced some permanent loss because of the climate change or the sea level rise. It is not for mitigation, not for adaptation. For that, we have separate fund. You remember that $100 billion that is to be given by the by the developed countries to developing country. That is for the adaptation and mitigation. This loss and damage fund was proposed just last year in Egypt. So this is for the permanent loss. Mitigation. So see, mitigation is to reduce the ill effects. Reduce the ill effects. That is for mitigation. Loss and damage is when permanent loss has happened. Fine. Megha, is it clear? Megha, Sonali, are your doubts clear? Okay. Now, guys, here we have certain reports. Here we have certain reports on environment that have been on news. And already you might be knowing this thing that on reports, there are 1 to 2 questions that are definitely coming in our prelims examination, though nothing can be said as definite. You know that always the pattern might be shifted here and there. But yes, this is a good area in terms of cost to benefit ratio. So here now we start with the theme 2, that is reports. So the first report is WISE report. Now, guys, how we are going to do these particular reports? So we will divide in the batch of five reports. So first, we are going to cover 5 reports. Then I will just be giving you 1 minute time. You need to go through these 5 reports. Fine. Maybe I'll ask 1 or 2 questions with respect to the report, and then we'll go to the next 5. So here we are going to do batching of 5 reports. Okay. So first that we have here is WISE report. First that we have here is WISE report. It stands for Water, Ice, Society and Ecosystem Report. Water, Ice, Society and Ecosystem Report. Now, one more thing is that how to cover these reports. In reports, only 2 things are to be done. Number 1, the name of report. Number 2, organization that is releasing that report. And number 3 is the key theme of that particular report. Beyond that, nothing is to be read for the report. Again, I am explaining report, organization releasing the report, and the key theme or the key focus of that particular report. Only this you need to see in the report. So first we have the WISE report. Now, this WISE report, it is released by International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. Now, what this report has talked about, this particular report has mentioned about the impact of climate change on Hindu Kush Himalayas. So, when we talk about, guys, the Hindu Kush Himalayas or Himalayas and Hindu Kush region, they are referred to as the third pole. They are referred to as the third pole. So, South Pole, North Pole, and the third pole is the Tibetan region, Hindu Kush Himalaya region. So, it has been said that the glaciers will be impacted because of the temperature rise. So, if 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius temperature rise will be there, 30 to 50% of ice, 30 to 50% of ice would be lost by the glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalayas. And what it will lead to? In immediate term or in the medium term, it will lead to a lot of water in the rivers coming from the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. And then these particular water supply will go down. Okay. It will also lead to extreme events such as the glacial lake outburst floods also. Glacial lake outburst floods. Why these glacial lake outburst floods will be there? It is because of the fact, guys, I told you that if suddenly more water will come, if glacial melt will increase, it can lead to glow-off-like of events. So it can ignite such events, landslides, frequent flooding, etc. will be increased. So WISE report, Water, Ice, Society and Ecosystem report. Water, Ice, Society and Ecosystem report released by the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. It talks about the negative impact on Hindu Kush Himalayas and the glaciers because of the temperature rise. They'll lose 30 to 50% of their water, volume of water. The next we have is the Fostering Effective Energy Transition 2023 report. Fostering Effective Energy Transition 2023 report. Now, this particular report, it has released the Energy Transition Index, and this report is published by which organization? World Economic Forum and Accenture. So Accenture is an IT services company. So Accenture and World Economic Forum, they have released this Fostering Effective Energy Transition report. Fostering Effective Energy Transition report. And this particular report, it has come out with Energy Transition Index. What is this Energy Transition Index? It ranks countries that how well they are moving towards the energy transition. Okay, for example, guys, now what is this energy transition? So we need to move from coal to renewable energies. So how well countries are moving towards this energy transition? And here they have ranked Sweden as the first, Norway second, Denmark as third. They are moving towards the energy transition. Okay, now here the report is prepared on the basis of 3 parameters: equity, security, and sustainability. What is India's rank? India's rank is 67. India's rank is 67 out of 120 countries. Just this you need to see here. So if in fact a question might come like this also, that Energy Transition Index was recently in news. Energy Transition Index is released by which organization? So even if that kind of a question comes, then also released by whom? World Economic Forum in collaboration with Accenture. Next, Greenhouse Gas Bulletin Report. Greenhouse Gas Bulletin Report. Who releases it? World Meteorological Organization. World Meteorological Organization. Now, guys, one thing is that you need not to even put the effort. Every coming year, average temperature is increasing. Every coming year, concentration of CO2 is going up only. So what this report says is very much obvious. The concentration of global house gas fine has reached to the record level in 2022. In the 24, it will say that it has reached record in 2023. Fine. Then Climate Service Report. Climate Service Report. Who releases again the same agency? World Meteorological Organization. World Meteorological Organization. Now what this says? This report says that the number of natural disasters are increasing. Fine, because of the climatic factors. This report says that by 2030, There will be 1.5 large scale disasters that will be there every day. Every day there will be 1.5 disaster that will be there, and these disasters are largely because of the climate change that is happening. And around the world, ministries, governments are not prepared to deal with these rising number of disasters. So less than 25% of health ministries, they utilize the climate information to monitor the health risk related to climate sensitivity. So as the climate change will be there, vector-borne disease will increase, respiratory disease, etc. will increase. We have already seen. So less than 25% ministries are prepared to deal with them. Less than 25% ministries are prepared to deal with them. Fine. So we'll bunch it in five groups, and we have done 1, 2, 3, 4. Now fifth. Breakthrough agenda report. Breakthrough agenda report. Now, who releases this breakthrough agenda report? Okay. So breakthrough agenda report, it is released by multiple organizations, but remembering them is not difficult. Number one, you need to remember International Energy Agency. International Energy Agency. Now put the word renewable. International Renewable Energy Agency. So first is energy, International Energy Agency. Second is International Renewable Energy Agency. And third is UN Climate Change High Level Champions. One more thing is, guys, that don't be very much particular that I need to remember the exact name. If something here and there also you'll remember, it will do the work. For example, if you remember that, okay, there was some integrated mountain name that was there for the WISE report, you'll be able to mark the right options, because UPSC, we have seen that UPSC actually gives very broad options. Fine. So International Energy Agency, International Renewable Energy Agency, and UN Climate Change High Level Champions. UN Climate Change High Level Champions. Now, what it provides? Breakthrough agenda report. So it provides this particular thing that we need to immediately increase investment in 5 areas: power, road, transport, steel, hydrogen, and agriculture, if we want to reach the climate goals. Fine, we need to achieve breakthrough investment in these 5 sectors. Only then decarbonization can be achieved. Only then the climate mitigation can be done. Okay. So now just, guys, take 30 seconds time, 1 minute time, and please go through these all 5 reports. Okay, guys, ensure this particular thing, that we have to ensure that now we don't have extra time for revision after the class. Within the class, we need to ensure that we retain maximum content. So please go through these reports. Just 30 seconds, and then we'll revise all these 5. Okay, now let's see the report. First, WISE report. WISE report, who releases it? International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. WISE report. International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. Report talks about impact on Hindu Kush Himalayas because of the rising temperature. Glacier will lose its volume. How many percentage? That is not that important. Second, we have Fostering Effective Energy Transition report. Fostering Effective Energy Transition report. What it has talked about? It has talked about the Energy Transition Index. Energy Transition Index. Who releases? World Economic Forum and Accenture. What it talks about? How well countries are moving towards energy transition. How well countries are moving towards energy transition. What are the top rankers? Sweden, Norway, Denmark. Greenhouse gas bulletin. What it talks about? It talks about the concentration of greenhouse gases in environment. 2022 record levels. Who releases? WMO. So greenhouse gas bulletin, World Meteorological Organization. Then climate service report, again same organization, World Meteorological Organization. And what it talks about? It talks about rising number of disaster because of the climate change. Breakthrough agenda report, who releases? 3 agencies: International Energy Agency, International Renewable Energy Agency, and then the United Nations Climate Change High Level Champions. Fine. What this report talks about? This report talks about that there is a breakthrough investments that are needed in 5 sectors for urgent decarbonization. Urgent investment is needed in 5 sectors. Okay. So this is all about it. Fine. Now tomorrow, guys, we'll be further moving in this particular direction. I hope that you have understood it. And one particular thing is that 2 things we need to focus in the classes simultaneously. Number 1, revision and retention should go hand in hand. Secondly, basically try to make the most out of it, because a lot of related concepts that are there, fine, even for the static that we are trying to cover here. So that is all about it. And now we'll be meeting tomorrow. So before that, if you have any question, if you have any doubt, please ask your questions. Yes, dear students, any question, any doubt, if you have, you may please ask. Yes, any question, any doubt, if you have, please ask. Okay, so I hope that then there is no doubt. Okay, so can we wind up the class then? Fine. So tomorrow we will further be moving with it. Okay, take care and please do revise till then. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have liked the class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.